My last trip to Wilmington was an interesting one. I got to tour again the GE plant that I've been to for several times and was amazed that there are now 2,000 plus jobs there. And as I looked at the platform and the work they're doing, I kept thinking, even with a company like GE, after a 40-year history here, it's hard for them in this economy. And I'm very deliberate and direct. It's hard for all of us in the economy, whether you are running a business, large or small, or whether you're running the state of North Carolina or the country of America. Let me tell you where we were when I took office very briefly. The week I was sworn in, I found out that North Carolina had about a $2.5 billion hole in our budget. That meant that I didn't have the revenue to pay the bills and the projections for North Carolina. And I thought, you know, I've done this a while, I can manage this, even during the time that we were rated by some of the outside raters as a D- or an F state. And I thought, I can do this. And then in April, I realized that the hole had grown so quickly that the economy was suffering and we were late to go in all over the state. Every single community has been affected poorly. And our budget deficit was no longer $2.5 but $4.5 billion. And I made some tough choices, as you've done in your businesses and your communities, about setting hard, direct priorities, trying to protect the core of industry and small business in the economy while trying to shield as much as we could, Rosemary, the whole educational from public schools, community colleges, and higher ed. And we made a lot of people mad, and that I never ran for governor to win a popularity contest. Every decision that I made was made on one basic premise. It drove what I did last summer. And I want you to know in April and in May, there were times that I was worried literally about how to pay the state's bills. There was one night that I had $1 billion worth of bills due, and I had $226 million in the state's coffers. And so that required tremendous choices and tremendous sacrifices throughout North Carolina. I'm the only sitting governor, the only governor in North Carolina's history who's ever furloughed state employees and teachers. I had to do that to pay the bills because my premise was that every decision I made was going to make sure that as we come out of this recession, and I agree we are really on our way out, you can see that light bulb turning on with a little dim light right now. It'll be very bright, I hope, by the end of 2010. My decisions were based on being sure that this state, across the state, could be globally competitive as we come out, knowing that we would come out. And that's what put us where we are today. And briefly, let me brag a bit to you. We've just been rated by the folks who gave us a D- or an F this time last year as a D- state. They say that we are in good shape, where we were failing this time last year, and they credit the decision making on the leadership of the state and of you, the business community. We also were named as the best place in America, even in this time, to do business once again by Site Selection magazine, and that's a real win for North Carolina. And finally, for you people who care about finances and bonds, we have just received news that because of the tough decisions we've made and the fundamental integrity of North Carolina's budget and this government, that North Carolina will be one of very few, less than 5, AAA bond-rated states again this year. That's pretty good, y'all. That's pretty good. And I'm proud of all that, but I'm not naive. This recovery is going to be long and hard. It's not going to be immediate. And we do anticipate another bump up in our unemployment rate. That's how things are when folks who've been unemployed begin to seek jobs again. And I think we all have to adapt to this new normal. Some of us have been struggling to do that for the last 18 months, and that adaptation will continue. And as I thought about this time, this period in this administration, after we have stabilized North Carolina's fundamental economic structure, I felt like the next thing that I had to do, working with folks all over the state, was focus on 4 priorities. And you know what the first one is. Anybody with a lick of sense would know this priority: jobs, jobs, and more jobs. And the Secretary Crisco and I are being called now the most competitive economic development team in many years, perhaps in North Carolina's history. We will go anywhere and meet with anybody, anywhere in the world. We've traveled to China and Japan, and last week the film industry. We really want to bring jobs to North Carolina, good jobs, jobs for our people. But equally important, it's critical for us to keep the jobs we have and to grow the small businesses that have made North Carolina strong. So this whole economic development thing called jobs has to be the #1 priority for North Carolina. Let me tell you what I think we have to do. I think we have to focus on jump-starting all of these major job-creating engines in our state, like the Chancellor talked about, the biotech, the pharma, the things you do so well here. But things are very hard for small businesses. And North Carolina, my friends, is a state made up of small businesses, as is this country. In 2006, there was a couple, Leslie and Bob Servicki, from right here in Hampstead. They sell a bunch of shipping supplies and services. They do packaging and shipping and mailing and laminating. You name it and they can do it. But even in this down economy, they figured out a way to refit their business platform and to make money. And they're doing well. They have told us they intend to open another store or two in North Carolina. And as they talk about their business plan and opening new stores, you know they grow their businesses and they can grow jobs, and we need that. But they came to us because they simply have the same problem that so many in America have. Where do I get the money? How can I get a loan? The banks traditionally have been the source of that small business lending, and it appears that a lot of that money has dried up. And that if I can get the loan, is a huge issue for all of us in North Carolina, for homeowners and for you and for small businesses. And so we have taken on with resolve through an initiative called Jobs Now, a focus on small business in a really powerful way. There are two goals to this Jobs Now initiative. One is to really increase North Carolina's banks' participation in the federally backed small business loan program. And then secondly, to help our own small businesses strengthen their loan applications. Within the next month, North Carolina will have successfully set up banker boot camps all over the state so that our banks, who traditionally have avoided the bureaucracy and the red tape of the Small Business Administration's loan pool, will actively and aggressively get involved in that. And we will help individuals, businesses, and leaders apply for those loans with this team of folks all over the state. You know in North Carolina that 60% of those of us who go to a bank to apply for a small business loan are turned down. And 60% of those turndowns are because we didn't fill out the application appropriately. We made some mistakes. We didn't know the process. This will help people, I believe, do this more effectively and more efficiently. I've been to Washington trying to push Washington and the Small Business Administration to get credit flowing again, that we cannot survive another year like this without some capital in our system. I've talked with the president and with the leader of the Small Business Administration. They understand where we are, and we have been very relentless and focused on that issue. And I talked to them about what we've done in North Carolina and why North Carolina would be a tremendous pilot state to show how one state can focus on small businesses and put our people back to work quickly. We in North Carolina recently announced that we've streamlined the small business backbone for North Carolina. When I became governor, there were platform silo after silo, if you will, of initiatives around small business in North Carolina and in our educational institutions. We have torn down some of those silos and have what I call North Carolina's first small business commissioner, a man named Scott Daugherty that many of you know. We've established an innovation council for the first time in the history of this state to figure out how we do new things in the 21st century to create jobs. And when the General Assembly convenes in May, we're not working just on the tax credit for the film industry. I want you to work with me on creating a tax incentive for small businesses to reward those of you who start a business in this state and stay in this state and grow that business and eventually either sell or retire from your business so that you won't leave us and go to South Carolina or Georgia or Florida.